At first light, in a village at the far north end of a Japanese island, an old woman walks out into her garden and lowers herself down into the dirt. Her hands know the work without being told. She pulls weeds, checks the leaves of her sweet potatoes, talks quietly to the plants the way you might talk to grandchildren. She is somewhere past 90 years old. She has done this almost every morning of her life, and she has no intention of stopping. The island she lives on once held a secret that the whole world came looking for. For a stretch of years, this place had more people living past the age of 100 than almost anywhere else on the planet. Not just alive at 100, but sharp and strong and still working their own gardens. Doctors flew in from across the world to study them. Whole books were written trying to bottle whatever it was these people had. They called it one of the healthiest places a human being could possibly be born. So the question almost asks itself, what did the people here understand about being alive that the rest of us have somehow forgotten? But there is a second half to this story, and it is the half that never makes it onto the postcard. Because whatever these old people know, they are taking it into the ground with them. The grandchildren of these 100-year-olds are not living as long as their grandparents did. In one human lifetime, the healthiest island on Earth has started, quietly, to die young. Come north with me, past the cities and the beaches and the fences of the American bases, into the village of the very old, and you will find both halves of the story sitting side by side, waiting to be understood. To find this place on a map, you have to look a long way south of the rest of Japan. Almost 1,000 kilometers south of Tokyo, the land breaks apart into a long, scattered chain of islands that curves down through warm water toward Taiwan. There are more than 150 of them, strung out across the sea like beads on a thread. Together they make up Okinawa, the southernmost part of Japan, and the furthest thing from the snow and the neon that most people picture when they think of that country. This is the subtropics. The sea here is not the cold gray of the north, but a clear, almost unreal blue, warmed by a great ocean current that sweeps up from the south. Coral reefs ring the islands in living color. The air is soft and wet and heavy with salt. Where mainland Japan freezes, Okinawa stays warm almost all year, and things grow here without much asking. Sweet potatoes in the red soil, bitter melon climbing the fences, small green citrus and sugarcane and turmeric and tropical fruit. For an island people, the land has always given just enough, and the sea has given the rest. The main island is the crowded heart of all this, a narrow strip of raised coral and limestone where most of Okinawa's people live, packed into busy towns around the capital, Naha. But drive north, away from the traffic and the shopping streets, and the island changes character completely. The roads narrow and climb, the towns thin out, and the land rises into a dense green tangled forest called Yanbaru, a subtropical wilderness so rich and so full of creatures found nowhere else that it has been named a treasure of the whole world. In that forest live things that exist on this island and no other. A strange, flightless bird that runs through the undergrowth on red legs, found only here. A shy wild cat on one of the neighboring islands, so rare that nearly the entire species could fit in a single village. Mangroves wading out into the river mouths, and hidden in the leaf litter, a venomous pit viper called the habu, the one creature on these gentle islands that every local child is taught, early and seriously, to fear. It is a small place, but an old one, and it has been alone with the sea long enough to grow its own private collection of life. And then there is the water itself, which may be the most beautiful thing the islands own. Out beyond the main island lie scattered smaller ones, ringed by reefs so clear and so vivid that the sea turns a blue most people only ever see in photographs. There are islands out here where the coral is barely touched, where sea turtles glide over the reef, and where in the quiet channels the last of a gentle vanishing sea creature called the dugong still drifts through the shallows, grazing on the grass of the seabed. The sea around Okinawa is among the richest in this part of the world, and for the people of the islands it has always been far more than scenery. It is the larder, the highway, and the thing that once made a small kingdom rich enough to trade with empires. And over all of it, every single year, comes the wind. Okinawa sits squarely in the path of the great Pacific typhoons, and when one arrives, the island simply shutters itself and waits. The warm sea that gives this place its beauty is the same sea that breeds the storms. To live here is to live close to the water in every sense, fed by it, sheltered by it, and now and then battered half to pieces by it. The people here have made their peace with that bargain a very long time ago. But to understand the people, you have to understand one thing first. They do not entirely think of themselves as Japanese. For centuries, these islands were not part of Japan at all. They were a kingdom of their own, the Ryukyu Kingdom, with its royal court up on the hill at Shuri, above what is now Naha. And it was a remarkable little kingdom, not a land of warriors, but a nation of traders, a small power that grew wealthy by sailing between the giants. Ryukyuan ships carried goods between China, Japan, Korea, and the ports of Southeast Asia, and the kingdom called itself a bridge between nations. It had its own kings, its own customs, and its own languages, related to Japanese but distinct languages that a person from Tokyo could not understand at all. You can still feel that older identity everywhere, if you look. It is in the stone lion dogs, the shisa, that sit on the rooftops and gateposts, baring their teeth to frighten off bad spirits. It is in the sound of the sanshin, the three-stringed instrument, half banjo and half voice of the islands, that turns up at every celebration. It is in the drums and the dancing of Isa and the bright dyed cloth and 100 small ways of doing things that are simply not the same as on the mainland. And it lives, too, in something far older than any castle. The Ryukyuans never really prayed to the gods of mainland Japan. Their spirits live out in the raw world, in sacred groves and caves and cracks in the rock, in places so holy that for centuries only women were permitted to tend them. This was an island where spiritual power belonged to women, to the priestesses who prayed for the whole community and the mediums believed to carry messages between the living and the dead. In a part of the world ruled almost everywhere by men, the soul of Okinawa was kept by its women. And in the old villages, in quiet ways, it still is. And it is there, most of all in the great hall on the hill at Shuri. For 5 centuries, the Ryukyu kings ruled from a palace of brilliant red and gold above Naha, a building unlike anything in mainland Japan, painted in the colors of the Chinese court the kingdom traded with. That hall has had to be reborn more than once. It was burned to the ground in the Battle of 1945, then patiently rebuilt over the decades that followed, a symbol of a people refusing to let their past be erased. And then, on a night in the autumn of 2019, the rebuilt hall caught fire and burned to its bones again, watched live by a whole island in tears. They are rebuilding it once more. They always do. The hall on the hill is the kingdom's stubborn heart, and it does not stay gone. The kingdom is long gone. Japan annexed these islands more than a century ago in the 1870s and set about turning Ryukyuans into Japanese, schooling the old languages out of children, folding the islands into the nation. Today, Okinawa is a Japanese prefecture like any other, on paper, but the people here carry an older sense of who they are and a word that runs underneath all of it. Yuimaaru. It means something like mutual help, the idea that a community survives by everyone leaning on everyone else. And that idea, as you are about to see, may be the single most important thing about this place. Because the famous longevity of Okinawa was never really about one magic food. It was about a way of living together. Day to day, life in the old villages moves slowly, and it moves in company. Nobody here grows old alone if they can help it. From childhood, many Okinawans are placed into a small group of friends called a Moai, a handful of people who are bound together for life. The Moai meets regularly, pools a little money, and watches over its members through every good year and every bad one. If your harvest fails, the Moai is there. If your husband dies, the Moai is there. You go into old age still surrounded by the same faces you knew as a child. In much of the modern world, the lonely years at the end of life are simply accepted as normal. Here, for a long time, they barely existed. Step into one of these villages on a festival night and you can watch the whole machine of it working at once. The old and the young move together in the circle dances. Someone's grandfather plays the sanshin from memory. Drums carry across the dark fields. Nobody is parked alone in front of a screen, and nobody is too old to have a part to play. This is the thing the visitors found so hard to measure and harder still to carry home. It was never one habit. It was 100 small threads, woven so tightly that a single human life could rest its whole weight on them and never fall through. And that web reaches past the living. Scattered on the hillsides above the sea are great stone tombs shaped like turtle shells, the resting places of whole family lines going back generations. Once a year, at a festival called Shimi, the families come to them, not to grieve but to gather, clearing the weeds, laying out food and drink, and sharing a long, loud, happy meal right there beside their ancestors. To an Okinawan, home was never just a house. It is the hearth, the family altar, and the tomb on the hill, the dead folded gently into the daily life of the living. And the old are not pushed aside. They are useful, and they know it. An Okinawan elder is expected to keep contributing, to garden, to mind the great-grandchildren, to play a role in the festivals, to stay woven into the life of the village right up until the end. There is a word for the thing that gets these people out of bed in the morning. Ikigai. Your reason for being. The small daily purpose that makes a life feel worth continuing. Ask a 100-year-old here why she keeps going, and she will not talk about medicine. She will point at her garden, or her friends, or the great-grandchild she is teaching to walk. Picture one of these women. She is in her late 90s, in the village of Ogimi, up in the green north. Every week she meets the same small circle of friends she has known for the better part of a century. Women who have buried husbands and raised children and weathered a war alongside her. They drink tea. They tease one another. They check, without ever quite saying so, that everyone is still all right. She has been part of this group since before the Second World War. To her, it is not a longevity strategy. It is simply her life and the people in it. But quietly, across all those decades, it has been holding her up. And now you arrive at the heart of it, the thing the whole world came to this island to find. Up in that northern village of Ogimi, on a stone by the roadside, the community has carved a kind of declaration. It says more or less that at 80 you are still a child, that at 90, if your ancestors call you to heaven, you should ask them to wait until you are 100, because only then will you even consider it. It reads like a joke. The astonishing thing is how close it has been to the truth. For generations, this poor, remote, storm-battered village produced old people in numbers that defied belief, men and women cresting 100 years and carrying on, lucid and active, well beyond. So the researchers came, and they took the island apart, looking for the secret. And what they found was almost disappointingly simple. There was no fountain, no pill, no single miracle. There was a way of life, and it had a handful of plain ingredients. The first was the food, and the food was humble. The traditional Okinawan plate was mostly plants. The staple for centuries was not rice, but the sweet potato, especially a deep purple one, eaten at nearly every meal. Around it came tofu and seaweed, and the famous bitter melon called goya, and a little fish, and only a small amount of pork, usually saved for celebrations. It was low in calories and rich in everything else. And it came with a rule, a phrase spoken before eating. Hara hachi bu. It means stop when you are 80% full, not stuffed, not empty, just enough. An entire culture that taught itself, generation after generation, to push back from the table before the body even finished asking. You can still taste that old wisdom in the island's kitchens today. There is goya champuru, the bitter melon stir-fried with tofu and egg and a little pork. There is rafute, pork belly stewed slow and soft in the island's own rice liquor and brown sugar until it melts on the tongue. There is Okinawa soba, thick wheat noodles in a broth of pork bone and bonito, and sea grapes that pop like green caviar, and that purple sweet potato turned into everything from soup to dessert. It is rich and varied and deeply satisfying. And eaten the old way, in modest amounts, it kept people lean and clear-eyed for 100 years. There is a quiet irony buried in that diet. The purple sweet potato, the food at the center of the longest lives ever recorded, did not arrive here as a delicacy. It came centuries ago as a famine crop, a hardy root that could survive the typhoons when the rice drowned. And for generations it was simply what poor islanders ate, because there was little else. The same is true of much of the old Okinawan kitchen. It was the food of people who did not have much, who used every part of a pig, who simmered bitter greens and seaweed, and drank turmeric steeped in hot water, because that was what the land gave them. Poverty, strangely, had written them a near-perfect diet. And prosperity, when it finally came, would be the thing that took it away. The second ingredient was movement, but not the kind you pay for. Nobody here ran on a treadmill. They simply moved all day in the natural rhythm of a farming life, walking the hills, working the gardens, sitting and rising from the floor 100 times a day. The body stayed strong because the life demanded it, gently, endlessly, without anyone calling it exercise. And the third ingredient was the one the visitors found hardest to take home in a suitcase. Connection, purpose, the Moai that never let you fall, the ikigai that gave you a reason to rise, the respect that kept the old at the center of things instead of the edge, low stress, deep belonging, and a sense, right to the end, that you were still needed. Picture an old man up in these hills, well into his 90s, who still goes out to tend his small field every morning. His hands are bent and spotted, but they are sure. He grows more vegetables than he could ever eat, and gives most of them away to neighbors, and that giving is part of what keeps him alive, because it makes him part of something. Ask him his secret, and he will laugh at the question. He does not feel like a man clinging to life. He feels like a man with somewhere to be tomorrow. That, in the end, was the whole secret. Not how to avoid dying, how to keep being alive all the way down to the last day. And yet a way of life does not pay a modern bill. So how does an island this beautiful and this famous actually make a living in the world as it is now? The honest answer is, with some difficulty. For all its fame, Okinawa is the poorest part of Japan. Incomes here are the lowest in the country, well below the national average, and the easy postcard image hides a long struggle with unemployment and with making ends meet on a small, crowded island far from the centers of national wealth. A great deal of the modern economy now runs on visitors. The same warm sea and white sand that you have been picturing draw enormous numbers of tourists every year, and the island has built much of its livelihood around them. The resorts along the coast, the diving on the reefs, one of the largest and most spectacular aquariums in the world. Okinawa sells its beauty, and increasingly it sells its legend, too. The idea of the island where people live forever, packaged for travelers who come hoping a little of it might rub off. Beyond tourism, there is the land and the sea, as always. Sugarcane and pineapple in the fields. That small, sour citrus prized across Japan. The island's own fierce rice liquor, awamori, aged in clay pots. Fishing boats working the blue. And there is one more part of the economy that no honest account can skip, a part that brings real money and real pain in the same breath. The American military. Because tens of thousands of foreign troops are stationed on this small island, and the bases, the spending, the jobs around them have been knitted into Okinawa's economy for generations, whether the people wanted them there or not. And that brings us to the part of this island that the brochures will never mention. Because behind the blue water and the smiling old people, Okinawa carries two deep wounds, and you cannot understand this place honestly without looking straight at both of them. The first wound is the one happening right now in plain sight. The longevity is fading. The very secret the world came to bottle is draining away, and it is the young who are losing it. After the Second World War, the American presence brought a new way of eating and living to the island: fast food, canned meat, hamburgers, cars to replace the daily walking. And the younger generations took to it. Canned pork, luncheon meat, handed out from the bases in the hungry years after the war, became so woven into island cooking that it still turns up today in the most ordinary Okinawan dishes. American fast food chains that have all but disappeared everywhere else are still busy here. Some of that collision of cultures gave the island something it loves, like taco rice, the seasoned beef and cheese and lettuce piled onto white rice that was born beside the bases and became a local favorite. But the rest of it, the burgers and the fried chicken and the sweet drinks, was quietly doing damage. They left the purple sweet potato behind for the drive-thru. They stopped moving the way their grandparents moved, and the results have been brutal to watch. Today, this island, once the healthiest place in Japan, has the highest rate of obesity in the entire country. In the year 2002 came a moment so jarring that Okinawans gave it a name: the shock. The life expectancy of Okinawan men, once near the very top of all of Japan's 47 regions, had collapsed to 26th place. It has fallen further since. The old people of Ogimi still live to 100, but they are the last of a kind, raised on a vanished diet in a vanished world, and behind them the pipeline of long life is running dry. The grandchildren are getting sick with the diseases of the modern West, years before their elders ever did. And the second wound is older and far heavier. In the spring of 1945, in the closing months of the war, this island became the site of one of the most horrific battles of the entire conflict. For nearly 3 months, American and Japanese forces fought across Okinawa, and the people who lived here were caught directly in the middle of it. By the time it ended, more than 200,000 people were dead, and among them were tens of thousands of Okinawan civilians. By many accounts, somewhere close to a quarter of the island's entire civilian population died, in the fighting, in the shelling, and in mass deaths and forced suicides as the battle closed in. It is a grief that sits under everything here, remembered every year, the names of the dead still being added to the great stone memorials decades later. And the war did not really end for Okinawa when it ended for everyone else. The island stayed under direct American control for 27 more years, returning to Japan only in 1972. And even now, the bases remain. Okinawa makes up only about half of 1% of Japan's land. Yet it carries on its back the great majority of the American military presence in the entire country, somewhere around 70% of it, crammed onto this one small island, taking up close to a fifth of the crowded main island where almost everyone lives. The people here have protested it for decades. They have voted against new bases by overwhelming margins. They speak bitterly of being treated as a sacrifice zone, a faraway place asked to carry a burden the mainland will not. You can see the problem most clearly in the middle of one crowded city, where a vast American airfield sits hemmed in by houses and schools, so close that the whole town lives under the roar of the aircraft and the shadow of what could go wrong. For years, the two governments have argued over moving it, pouring earth into a beautiful northern bay to build a replacement, over the objections of islanders worried about the coral and the rare sea creatures that live there. When Okinawans were finally asked to vote on that new base, more than 7 in every 10 said no. The work went ahead anyway. There are real arguments on the other side about a dangerous region and the need for defense, but on the ground, in the villages, the feeling is older and simpler. That this gentle, long-lived island has been made to hold more than its share of the world's hardness. So go back, one last time, to the old woman in her garden at first light. She has lived through all of it. She was a child when the battle came. She watched the island change hands, watched the bases rise, watched her own grandchildren trade the food that kept her alive for the food that is making them sick. She is one of the last living pieces of the thing the whole world came here to find. And every morning she still kneels in the dirt, still tends the plants, still has somewhere to be tomorrow. The secret of this island was never a diet, or a climate, or a stroke of luck. It was a whole way of being alive, eating just enough, moving without thinking, growing old in the middle of people who needed you and never letting go of your reason to wake up. It made some of the longest, fullest lives this planet has ever measured. And it is slipping away, even here, even now, in the one place that knew it best. So if you carry one thing away from this island, let it be that. Whatever your own reason is for getting up tomorrow, whoever your own small circle is, hold on to them. That, far more than any superfood, was the real secret all along. Thanks for taking the long road north with us. Wherever the next island leads, come along.